Welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. All right. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. I hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right, we're going to get right on into our subject today. Our subject matter today is ways to be a good spouse. Ways to be a good spouse. There's several ways that you can become a good spouse, and it takes time and it takes practice. You're not gonna automatically become a perfect husband or a perfect wife. Because for one thing, there's no such thing as a perfect husband or a perfect wife. We can all use some kind of coaching or some kind of readings that we can do to become better spouses, and it comes with practice, and sometimes you have to make sure you to remember to do the things that you think about, because you could think about things and not remember to do them, so you have to remember to do them as well. For instance, if you want to become an excellent spouse, one of the things you can do is like simple things like pull the chair out for your wife or open the car door for her. And and a lot of times in this hustle and bustle of the world, and things that are going on around the world, in the world, we tend to forget about certain things, and some things are overlooked. And it's not that it's done on purposely; it just doesn't cross your mind. One of the things is that say something when something is wrong. That's a good way to become a good spouse. Say something when something is wrong, but there's a way that you say something, though. We talked about this a little bit last week. And one of the things is don't assume that your wife or husband is a mind reader. And because sometimes we'll let things go past and not say anything about it. But make sure we say something about it. But first of all, before you say something about any kind of issues there or when something is wrong, make sure you figure out a way to say what's wrong. Because sometimes you can't just say what's on the top of your head, or I'm going to give him peace of my mind. No, you don't want to do that. So make sure you think about what you're going to say it and how you're going to say it. And that's the same thing. Again, I always refer to it back because I'm a pastor. So I always refer to it back. It's the same thing as a minister. You have to, even though you might be, when something is wrong in the church, you have to figure out a way to present it. Figure out how way to say it and a way to present it, and figure out what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. Because you can't just say what's on the top of your head and say, "Oh, it's the truth." We talked about that last week. You can't just say it like that. So make sure that we are figuring out a way to, because some discussions are easy. For instance, for a prime example, if, for instance, your spouse comes in and take their shoes off in the living room, leave their socks on the floor, don't take them upstairs or put them in a hamper or anything, and he's been doing this since you've been married day one, and you've been married several years, and you're just now talking about it. That's something that should have been talked about at first. Just figure out a way to say it and how to say it. And if you figure out a way and how to say it, then it wouldn't become an issue. And don't wait, like if you wait years from now, then animosity builds up, and you always do it, and then they do something, then you got to bring that up. So make sure that we figure out a way to say something when there is a issue in the marriage. Also, here's another one here. Talk about issues before they become rough patches. Now, you don't want to wait to, again, that's where it comes in when you discuss something up front. You don't want to wait for years, because you wait for years, it's going to become a rough patch. And then you really going to have to think about how to bring this subject up, how to present it. And, and again, just because you're speaking the truth does not mean it is time to present it. It's all in the presentation. So make sure that we talk about issues before they become rough patches. Make sure you just, again, sit down and talk about it, because this, it doesn't, and make sure you're listening when you're talking about it. You can't out talk or over talk a person, and expect to get past a rough patch. If you're discussing something that's you're trying to prevent from becoming a rough patch, you can't over talk the other person. You have to listen. Most of the time, even in a discussion that you bring up, you might be the one that's doing all the listening and not talking, which is a good thing, because then you get to understand why there was the issue in the first place. All right, here's another one. Make a point to thank him for what he does, or him or her, or your wife, or your husband. Make sure you thank them for what they do. A lot of times we we don't do it purposely, uh, but it ends up being the person getting taken for granted. The little things that they do. Make sure you thank your spouse, especially if those with the spouses, because there's some spouses that make breakfast every single morning. They make some sort of breakfast. Make sure that we are thanking them for the things that they do, and you can't say thank you enough. Don't let it be when you say thank you, they go, "What's going on?" What's they should be used to you saying thank you. For like when the wife cooks a meal, make sure you say thank you. It's always delicious, even if it's not delicious. See, that's a discussion you make, so you won't have to go through a rough patch. Make sure you say it's delicious, you enjoyed it, and the way to get around it, if it's not a enjoyable meal, just say, "Oh, you know what? Tonight I'm gonna take you out to dinner." And that's the way of getting around that, without causing a scene, or without causing a discussion or argument. You just, take her out to dinner. That'll solve that right away. If you want something done your way, be willing to do it yourself. Oh wow, that's a big one there, because sometimes we want people to do something the way we want it done, and they might not do it the way you want it do, but they might still get the same results. If you want something done a certain way, be willing to do it yourself, but don't do it in a way where I just do it myself, you know, because he didn't move fast enough, or she didn't move fast enough when you ask for something to be done. And then again, too, don't take forever to do something. Like if your wife wants you to, let's say, take a look at the toilet because it's not working properly. Before you go calling somebody, Google it. You Google everything else. Google it, because a lot of times if there's something wrong with the toilet, it can be fixed in 5 to 10 minutes, or 10 seconds even. So learn how to improvise and get things done. And if the wife asks you to look at the toilet, you don't want to take forever to do that. And if you don't want to get to the point where you don't do it, she'll say, "I just do it myself. I just do it myself." You don't want to get to that point. Make sure you go ahead and take a look at whatever she wants you to do, or whatever he wants you to do. Make sure you do that, so that way, and be willing if they are too busy. Just I'll do this because I see you busy. I'll do this. But when I'm finished, can you take a look at it to see if it's done right and let me know if not? Something like that. To keep the heated discussions down. Have a conversation about the state of your marriage. Always have a conversation about that. That's a really hard subject, because sometimes we all go through those phases where you might feel boredom, or you might feel, like the marriage not getting anywhere. That's growing pains of a marriage. That's the same thing. Again, I always refer to marriage, and that's why the Bible said, "Love your wife as Christ loved the church," because it's similar setup. Sometimes you feel like that in a ministry. You feel like it's not going anywhere. You feel like it's just stagnant. But so you have to figure out ways to get it going, to rekindle the fire. Just like a fire, if you have a campfire and you just let it sit there, it's gonna die out. So you have to stir it up and every once in a while, and then you have to put coal back into the fire or put another log on it to keep the fire burning. And the same thing with a marriage. When you feel that flame going down, sometimes you have to figure out a way to rekindle that flame and keep it going. I had posted something on Let's Talk Marriage. I think I did it yesterday, and it said to make sure you date your wife. Make sure you date your wife and continue to flirt with her. That was how you met her. You were flirting with her. You said something real cute to get their attention. So why not keep that going? That's adding wood or to the fire and keeping it kindling. Because a lot of times and especially if you've been married for a little while, you tend to get into your routines and in your daily things, and sometimes you forget to acknowledge your spouse. So make sure we are acknowledging our spouse and make sure that we are talking about, I'm feeling kind of bored or whatever. Figure out something ways to do something together. Some couples, even if you've never done it before, go for a nature walk, go for a drive, things like that. There's so many things that you can do. And some people always say, oh, I can't afford all that. I can't afford to go to all these trips. You don't really have to do anything like that. You can just it doesn't cost you anything to go for a drive. Oh, I forgot my microphone. It doesn't cost anything to go for or take a drive or something like that. It doesn't cost anything to do that. So we can make sure that we do things like that. Go for a walk, go for a drive, and things will be, it'll keep the kindle in a marriage. So make sure that we have those discussions about the state of the marriage. Again, sometimes it's not easy because you don't want to be offensive, so you have to figure out a way to present the state of your marriage to your spouse. It's not always a good conversation. Don't get offended by when the wife. It's just some things that you go through. There's growing pains, and again, the same thing happens in the ministry. When you're a Christian, sometimes you feel like you're not getting anywhere, and that's when you have to go back to your word and your fast and stuff. And in a marriage, what you do is you have to go back to the basics, and that's what you have to do as a Christian. When you feel stagnant and feel like you're not getting anywhere, go back to your basics. And it's the same thing with the marriage. When you're feeling that way, go back to the basics. Go back to what got you going, and whatever got you going, to make sure that you are continually doing that, and that will keep the marriage in a wonderful state. All right. Here's another one here. Understand that he's his own person. We have so many people that try to make over a person. You can't change a person. Especially if you've been married several years, you're not going to change a person. And when you met that person, you knew how he was. If he was no good and you went ahead and married him, what make you think he's going to change? If he was no good then, he's still going to be no good. If he was a ladies' man back then, what make you think because you married him, he's not going to continue to be a ladies' man? So we have to make sure that we let our spouses be their own person. When they're their own person, make sure that you give them their space, each other space to be themselves. Don't try to make them into something that you want them to be. You should be on one accord, and being on one accord don't mean that you both are the same thing. For instance, it takes several notes to make a chord, and being on one accord doesn't mean that you're in one key. That means that it takes several notes to be on one accord. So there's several personalities, several things that you accomplished and things that he accomplished, and you put those together and you make that one accord. All right, here's another one. I love this one. Don't badmouth him to your friend. Ladies, gentlemen, husbands, wives, do not talk bad about your spouse to your friends. Please, even if you have a argument or discussion or something, and even if you get to the point we have to separate for a little while, don't talk bad. That's where a third party comes in. If you go see a counselor or something like a marriage counselor or something, then you can say whatever you said. But please don't say anything bad about your spouse to your friends, because first of all, you're going to say that something bad about your spouse to your friends, and then they're going to feel some kind of way about him, and then when he come around or when she come around, they're going to be looking at him cross-eyed like, yeah, that's him, oh, knock him out, and stuff like that, especially if you are real close with your girlfriends. Guys been knowing each other for years and stuff, and you tell them something, because they care for you, and you tell them something that your husband did or said, the nerve of it, And then when he come around, he's gonna be look. You guys made up and moved on, but they still gonna be looking at the fact that you told them that he called you nap-headed or something. They gonna be, when he come around, they gonna be looking at it funny, or when she come around, they gonna be looking at her funny. So make sure you do not badmouth each other to your friends. Not even to just your friends. Just don't say nothing bad about, especially to your parents. Don't tell your mama what he did to you, because your mama gonna feel some kind of way when he come around, especially on the holidays, during this holiday season. Here he is, hey, and he come in and say, hey, mom, and she, So make sure we are not saying nothing bad about our spouses and things like that. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing off here. I hope everyone is having a great, wonderful Christmas season. I always like to say Christmas season. Some folks say holiday season. I like to say Christmas season. I say holiday season after Christmas. Then it becomes holiday season. But before Christmas, I always say, before the day of Christmas, I always say Christmas season. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Christmas season. Remember, Jesus is the reason for the season. And we give gifts as a token or to relate to how he received gifts at the manger. So that's one part of why we exchange gifts, because they brought gifts of frankincense and myrrh to the manger. So that's why we give gifts to each other. And sometimes some folks ain't gonna never get nobody nothing till Christmas time. So that's one of the good things about it. And then we recognize the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing off with Let's Talk Marriage until we meet again. Now remember, all the music that you hear on Let's Talk Marriage is from an app called Whoop Triggers Plus, and you could find it on the Apple Store and what's the other one name? You know what I mean. You can find it on the Apple Store. It's called Whoop Triggers Plus, and it's a very, very excellent app for small churches or churches that don't have musicians or churches that are doing live broadcasts or podcasts or things like that. You can use it on there, and it can actually back a preacher, and there's songs on there you can sing along with, or you can do solos on it. It's an awesome app. So check it out, Whoop Triggers Plus. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage.